User accountability is the public telling the drug user, what you're doing is not just your business. It's criminal, and it's unacceptable. Get help, and get treatment if you need it, or face the consequences. We don't want to be hard-hearted, but the drug problem exists only because you and people like you keep it alive. The rest of us don't want to put up with it anymore.
Drugs are certainly not a new phenomenon. Drugs have had a huge impact on our society. The world, it seems, used to be a simpler place in all respects. There were good guys and bad guys, and if at all possible, the bad guys were arrested and put in places like this. Today, things are more complicated. Much of what ails society, cripples it in many ways, is drug-related. And drugs are a complex, painful problem that doesn't respond to easy solutions. Putting the drug dealers in jail is still an important way of attacking drugs, but it's no longer the only way. My name is Bill Alden. I'm a special agent with the Drug Enforcement Administration, the federal government's lead agency in the war against illicit drugs. Our primary objective in this war is to arrest the dealers and, as much as we can, confiscate assets they've acquired with profits from their dealing. Since 1984, however, we've been augmenting that traditional approach with a program called demand reduction. In the next 20 minutes or so, we're going to take a general look at DEA's demand reduction effort and a specific look at a new aspect of that effort, something that has become known as user accountability. Up there. Think of the fight against drug trafficking, and these are the images that come naturally to mind. But they represent only one side of the coin. The other side of the coin may be a surprise because it has very little to do with arrest or police work as most people think of it. For DEA and now many other law enforcement agencies all over the United States, demand reduction is the other side of the coin. It's a concept that makes use of education and awareness as major weapons in decreasing the demand for drugs.
I'm pleased to announce one of the most significant programs ever undertaken in the field of drug abuse prevention and education.
The idea was initiated on June 27, 1984, when it was announced that DEA, in concert with the National High School Athletic Coaches Association, the International Association of Chiefs of Police, the National Football League, and the NFL Players Association, was launching the Sports Drug Awareness Program.
48,000 coaches.
Go in and take it. Tell them 76, halfback, shallow cross.
What we sought to do was enlist 48,000 high school coaches in 20,000 high schools. They would set up an anti-drug abuse program in their schools. Then, through these programs, the 5.5 million athletes the coaches work with would become involved. The athletes would be taught how to use their influence to dissuade other students from using drugs. We weren't sure how well this would work, but we were sure that it was a way to acknowledge DEA's responsibility to reduce not only the supply of drugs, but the demand for them. Well, the program was successful. So successful, in fact, that it became the heart and soul of a demand reduction program that over the years has taken a variety of forms. Each one has been remarkably effective in its own way. We've put on all-star anti-drug extravaganzas. One in Washington, D.C., with rock groups like Run DMC, and one in New Orleans, in the Superdome, which featured celebrities from entertainment in sports.
I'm not in the same boat in the sense that I do drugs. I'm in the same boat because I don't do drugs.
The power is in me. Thank you.
We've produced Say No public service announcements for radio and television, most of them done by sports stars.
Fight that takes place in a day-to-day living. One of those fights has to do with drugs. Don't let them win a decision over you. Knock drugs out of your life by just saying no. More and more people are saying no every day.
Baseball's Dave Winfield was the host of a 17-minute videotape DEA produced, which offered information about drugs so that people, mostly young people, could make intelligent, informed decisions about whether or not to use drugs.
Now we're going to look at drugs and their abuse from different angles. What we want when we're done is for you to be better prepared for that instant when you're offered drugs. We want you to say no, and we want you to know why that's the right decision.
We've offered our enthusiastic support to a host of anti-drug programs like Super Teams and the efforts of the National Youth Sports Coaches Association, which is based in Florida. We've worked with the Law Enforcement Explorer program of the Boy Scouts and have developed a drug-free business initiative. These are some of the highlights of DEA's demand reduction package. And bringing that package closer to individual communities is the fact that we now have a special agent demand reduction coordinator in each of our 19 field divisions. A 1987 National Institute of Drug Abuse study gave us some good news and some bad news. The good news is that there has been a decrease in the use of illicit drugs by young people. The bad news is that among high school seniors, over a fifth had used marijuana and 4.3% had used cocaine within the past month. 50% of them had tried marijuana, 15% had tried cocaine, and almost 6% had tried crack. And the recently published 1988 NIDA report reflects a continued decline in the use of drugs by high school seniors. The simple truth is that there is a continuing demand for drugs by the young and by adults. Up to this time, our demand reduction strategy has emphasized prevention and education. It still will. But now, we intend to add a new element: user accountability. The majority of users think there are no consequences to their drug use. User accountability is going to change that.
User accountability is our initiative in order to tell the drug user that he or she will be held responsible and accountable for illicit drug use. Our society is based upon the common law, the rights of individuals. Each of us has a right. Citizens do have a right to choose to violate the law, but then they must face the responsibility of punishment for their actions. The good citizens of the United States have rights too. They have a right to work in a drug-free environment. They have the right to live in a drug-free environment, to travel in a drug-free environment. User accountability means that those individuals who want to violate those rights must be held accountable for their actions.
Being accountable is one thing, but just how a person is held accountable is something else. Suggested sanctions against drug users have run the gamut, from the real possibility of winding up in jail to the publication of the names of convicted people in local newspapers. We've explored fines, community service, and a forfeiture of driver's licenses. We've looked at seizing property, such as vehicles, mandatory intensive drug education courses, police records that can be wiped clean with time and good behavior, spending weekends in jail. Convicted people could be made to pay law enforcement costs and court costs. There could be mandatory sentencing. There could be drug testing and the requirement to remain drug-free as a condition of bail or probation. Whatever the sanctions are, the point is this: we're not fooling around. As the war on drugs intensifies, new fronts will be opened. User accountability, basically making the consumer at the bottom of the drug distribution pyramid suffer legal consequences, is just such a new front. And the battle there has already begun all over the country. User accountability. Nowhere is that more obvious than in Phoenix, Arizona, where Chief of Police Ruben Ortega has lent both his personal prestige and the prestige of his office to an ambitious demand reduction user accountability program. It was his interest and dedication that launched an effort that reaches beyond Phoenix to encompass surrounding jurisdictions within Maricopa County. In fact, over 20 law enforcement agencies are taking part in the program.
Adam 11, which direction?
The enforcement aspect is only one small part of the user accountability program. Just putting users in jail or charging them or getting them into the system is not going to be the total answer. It will only be part of the total program. We need to increase emphasis on education, for example. There are a number of educational programs that law enforcement can take a very strong lead because they do have an influence, particularly among the young people, the grade school level. We have also neglected the area of counseling and treatment. That needs attention and needs resources. We cannot abandon those that are already into the drug use. We need to give them an alternative, that there is help available for them. And thirdly, we need to make sure that it's not just law enforcement doing this thing, that private industry, that private institutions, be they educational boards, unions, be they church groups, private industry, that they too need to get behind this concept and this philosophy. I just feel it completes the whole picture of going after drugs in this country, that we need to attack it at all fronts, not just the enforcement of putting people in jail, but this whole other area of education and prevention and treatment, and specifically changing the attitudes of people before they get into drug use.
Carefully conceived and well orchestrated, Phoenix's program, in a sense, blazing a trail, evolved some elements that appear essential to a successful user accountability endeavor, generating broad-based support from grassroots organizations as well as federal, state, and local authorities, ensuring that the specific needs of a community are addressed and the community characteristics are considered, developing committees to deal with the various issues that inevitably arise in a comprehensive effort, including a media support and information committee designed to both keep the public informed and establish public support.
If you choose to use illegal drugs in Phoenix, you are accountable.
Task force coming soon to your area. One of the programs that we've instituted here is what's called the Buyer Beware program, and that has been the U.S. Attorney's Office working with the LAPD and other local law enforcement agencies and the DEA to use federal forfeiture statutes, asset forfeiture statutes, to make an impact on individuals that are drug users, that are going around to various drug sale hotspots in the city of Los Angeles and buying illegal drugs. And the way the program works is that using LAPD or in some cases the Santa Ana PD or other local law enforcement agencies here, surveillance is set up on an open and notorious drug sale hotspot in this federal district. We observe what is a drug buy being made by somebody driving up in his automobile. After that, after the buy has been completed, the individual drives away in his automobile, and a black and white frequently is simply notified once the car is away from the site where the drug sales are going on that a drug buy has been made. The police then pull over that car. They have, of course, probable cause, actually more than probable cause, to believe that there are illegal drugs in that automobile.
And at that point, it's pulled over. There is a probable cause search made of the automobile. The drugs are located. The defendant is arrested for the drug use, but also, and this is what I think is meaningful in the buyer beware program, the car is seized.
Here in Los Angeles, the type of operation Mr. Bonner just described got underway in 1986. Since then, there have been several. Each one has been highly publicized in order to make clear that both the seller and the buyer are now the focus of law enforcement. Just south of Los Angeles, in San Diego, several distinct user accountability efforts are underway. One, called Zero Tolerance, combines DEA and U.S. Customs expertise. It has proven efficient and cost-effective. People in possession of small amounts of drugs for personal use, not distribution, have been arrested, had their vehicles seized, and been issued notices to appear in federal court within a 3-week period. Each person involved, each one, pled guilty to misdemeanor possession charges. Few served time, most were fined or sentenced to 1 year unsupervised probation. Drug Awareness Resistance Education Program, or DARE, is active both in schools here and in Los Angeles. So is the Undercover High School Buy program, taking place in over 10 secondary schools.
In 1989, 3 million children will receive the DARE curriculum. There are now DARE training centers to teach officers how to be DARE teachers in classrooms. Los Angeles, of course, is the granddaddy of the DARE program. We have one regional training center, but there are other ones established in Arizona, and in Illinois, in North Carolina, and in Virginia. 5 regional training centers across the country, and these centers are training officers to be DARE teachers in the school districts throughout the United States.
Street Team Enforcement Action, another San Diego Police Department operation, is aimed directly at both the user and those under the influence of drugs. More than 1/3 of those arrested under this program are drug users.
This is the nation's capital, and we have a major drug problem like most major urban areas in America. In fact, in 1988, we had a record number of homicides, 60% of which were drug-related. As a result, we have tried to change our strategies of what we're doing on the street. Our major problems here are open-air markets. We have close to 100 open-air markets where drugs are freely sold. Crowds congregate. And with that in mind, we started one of our significant operations, which is Operation Clean Sweep. Operation Clean Sweep in a little over 2 years has made in excess of 46,000 arrests. So to a large degree, we have disrupted the open air markets. One of the benefits of the Operation Clean Sweep, every person arrested is debriefed, and we try to obtain intelligence from those individuals. You know, addicts are uncomfortable being arrested. They're uncomfortable out of their atmosphere, and hopefully we can continue to do that. We're going to do all we can along with all segments of the community, the criminal justice system and the private sector, the media, to bring this to the public's attention, to heighten everybody's sensitivity to this, and hopefully we will have some major impacts in the reduction of the demand side for drugs in this city.
Washington, D.C., Los Angeles, San Diego, and Phoenix are just some of the locations where user accountability programs are at work. There are others, from Prince George's County in Maryland to Nashville, Tennessee, and a lot of places in between. But wherever this concept, which utilizes penalties to reinforce a person's individual responsibility to remain drug-free, to avoid using drugs, wherever this concept exists, it does not and cannot exist in a vacuum. There have to be guidelines. No one knows that better than William Bennett, former Secretary of Education, now heading up the Office of drug control policy. An advocate of directing law enforcement attention on users as well as dealers, Mr. Bennett is absolutely certain that for any user accountability effort to succeed in the real world, the world away from the theoretical drawing board, certain principles must be met.
The 4 principles that must be applied are these. First, all efforts to make the user accountable for his actions must be in accord with the Constitution of the United States. The rights of all alleged drug users and those who are under investigation must be protected. That's what the founders intended, and that's what we're going to do. Second, our efforts must go hand in hand with support from the communities and institutions that form the bedrock of our society. The organizations that play a central role in demand reduction, unions, boards of education, civic groups, professional associations, these must be in the forefront of our nation's efforts to make the user accountable. We have to speak in one voice and say we want a nation in which illicit drugs cannot be consumed without penalty, a nation in which you pay if you break the law, a nation in which the individual is responsible for his or her actions and must bear the consequences. Third, we have to be flexible in our approach. Programs that stress user accountability must be designed to address not only the specific needs and desires of a particular community, but must take into account the particular resources that that community can bring to bear on the problem. And these programs must also have sufficient flexibility to cope with the unique characteristics of each offender. Finally, there has to be a true balance between effective programs and fair treatment. We must make sure that in each case the penalty fits the crime. Take these 4 common sense principles, put them together, and you have the basis on which to act. You have the foundation for a successful user accountability program. With that in mind, we can set to the task of making user accountability a nationwide goal.
The war on drugs is fought on an always shifting battlefield. But wherever it is fought, the consequences of losing are terrible. What we're talking about here is the devastation of drugs on individual lives and society as a whole. Because so much is at stake, any weapon that might provide an advantage against illicit drugs must be tried. For some time, the Drug Enforcement Administration has been working in the area of demand reduction to complement its more traditional activities in combating illicit drugs. Recently, user accountability became part of that area. We in DEA believe strongly in the concept and will serve as the major catalyst, coordinator, and leader in addressing this vital issue. What does that mean? It means simply that we will offer and provide information on what state and local jurisdictions are doing with regard to user accountability. It means that we will provide to state and local police who seek it assistance to help them design, implement, and evaluate model programs. And it means that DEA's 19 demand reduction coordinators will set up a community network within their geographic regions to encourage user accountability efforts. It's never going to be easy to win the war on drugs. We know that. It seems to me, though, and it seems to all of us in DEA and to many law enforcement agencies, that actually holding the user responsible for his or her actions is a step toward doing just that. It may be a small step, but it's an important one. That's why we're taking it. Thank you for viewing this program. I'm Bill Alden.